Welcome to a Blood Moons lesson from RootSource. RootSource allows Jews and Christians to come together and engage directly with each other and share the Jewish roots of the Christian faith. Now, the Blood Moons is one of the most interesting and controversial topics that I've ever seen take a hold of the Christian community. And if we could do one thing well in these lessons, it's not to convince you of anything, but to give you enough knowledge so that you can decide for yourself, or at least ask the right questions. Jews often say that a good question can be far more valuable than even a good answer. It's more important to us, most important to us, is that you learn how to think for yourself in this area, and we want to give you the tools to do that. Here's one thing we know. Nobody has the full picture of the blood moons. No author. Everybody has valid points. Even the books that say that the blood moons mean nothing have significantly valid points. And the authors that have put out various books, and I've had the opportunity to read everything that I could get my hands on. Read a number of books, articles, a lot of different sources. There is value in what everybody is saying. And we don't have the full answer. I don't. So this slide shows what is normal for a given 2-year sequence. It is normal to have full moons for each of those feasts. And it is normal to have a bright, shining sun shining down on the religious new year. Over the last 2,000 years, the sequence of a first year and a second year with these 4 lunar eclipses, it's happened about 9 times. Is it possible to have more than 4 eclipses in a row? No, it is not scientifically possible. Is it possible to have a sequence like this and have less than 4? Yes, you can have 3, 2, or, of course, just a single lunar eclipse is possible. Well, now let's look at who can see these events. When you have a total lunar eclipse, like we did back in April of 2014, about half the Earth can see it. Why half? Well, anyone who's on the dark side of the Earth while this eclipse is happening can look and find the moon in the sky and see it, assuming it's not cloudy. And then on the next lunar eclipse, you have a one half of the Earth again, but not necessarily the same half. Why? Because the Earth is spinning and these eclipses don't occur at exactly the same moment. Now, who can see this eclipse, the solar eclipse? Well, there's 2 answers to that. The first answer is who can see the partial portion of it. The partial is when the moon is partially covering the sun. And the answer to that is about 15% of the Earth. Part of Africa, Europe, Western Russia, and the Middle East, including Israel, can see this partial solar eclipse. Now, what about the actual totality, this beautiful totality? In general, for a given solar eclipse, only 0.1% of the Earth can see it. Well, let's look at this particular path in this case, because we really want to center in on this particular eclipse in this lesson because it is coming up so close from now. Well, its path is almost totally over the Atlantic Ocean. It starts south of Greenland and it curves up. You can see Europe over here and Iceland there. Can't really see it, but there's the Faroe Islands are right about here with 50,000 people. And as you see this path, as long as you're between the blue lines, you can see this event. As you see, it passes some land up towards the top of the path. So let's take a look at that. What island is that? That is an island series called Svalbard. It's off the coast of Norway. Less than 3,000 people live there. They're certainly getting their 15 minutes of fame in this particular eclipse. Actually, we should say they're getting their 2 minutes of fame because this solar eclipse is only going to last about 2 minutes. But here is the most interesting part. If you look at the path, see how it's starting to head north and then it goes off the map. Where does it go? Let's take a look. Do you see where this is heading? It starts off the coast of Greenland, and do you see how it's heading right towards the top of the world, the North Pole? And in fact, the shadow does reach the North Pole. All right, so now let's take a look at this animated image. This is repeating here, and you will see just below Greenland, the shadow, it will go past the Faroe Islands, there it is, and then Svalbard, and then up to the North Pole. The larger shaded area is the area that will see the partial eclipse. You see that crossing Africa and Europe and so forth. There it is again. Well, I'm happy to report that this would be visible at the North Pole, even though it occurs 12 hours before spring. So what we have then on this Earth at the North Pole is a total solar eclipse skimming the horizon for 2 minutes on March 20th, the first day of spring, for probably the first time in 100,000 years. And on the very day that Israel is going to begin its religious new year at sundown. These things combining for the first time ever, it seems. Okay, now for the big question. What does it mean? We need God's light, because that's the only way that any of us are going to have our perspective truly enlarged. So, I hope you can come over. Oh, and that North Pole eclipse, that's not the only surprise we have left to open. Not by a long shot.